Why, hello everyone, and welcome back to Tunic on PlayFrame. It's been a couple of weeks. It feels very good to be back here, and I have some great news for you. 3 bits of great news, in fact. So, great news number 1. My voice sounds better, which, for those of you who've been watching these in real time, that's probably obvious news to you. But for those of you watching this on a playlist later, good news. I'm sounding better than in the last video you watched in the playlist. Anyway, good news number 2. I think I have figured out what I need to do in order to go back to the pre-apocalypse version of this world. And the reason I know, or I think I know anyway, how that's going to work is partly because a lot of folks were giving hints in the comments, both vague and unvague. But the other reason is that I have learned to read Tunic. Over the break, Carrie and I spent 7 hours, I think, just sort of poring over this thing and scribbling notes and whatnot, and eventually finally cracked the code for how to read this script or interpret it. We've not translated the whole book. No, heck no. That it still is a very slow process, just interpreting individual sentences. But we figured out how to read it, and today I am going to walk you through that journey so that you too can learn to read Tunic. Now, those of you who have not yet learned how to read the script in this game, if you feel like that is something you want to figure out for yourself, or even if you think that it might be, I would recommend just going ahead and skipping this particular episode right now. Just go ahead and skip to the next video in the playlist or wait and come back tomorrow. I am not going to do any further forward progress in the game today. You will not miss anything. And even though it takes a lot of work, it is quite satisfying managing to crack this language for yourself. So don't worry, you won't miss anything. I'll see y'all tomorrow. For the rest of you, let's learn to read. Welcome to PlayFrame. So rather than just come out and tell you how the language works, since I did a lot of this off camera, all of this basically off camera with me and Carrie figuring this out over the course of a very large chunk of an evening, why don't we just go ahead and walk through the whole process of understanding that we went through, just sort of from beginning to end, and look back through all the clues that the game gave us as to how you can learn to read this script. Just sort of relive the whole thing for you. So, we started things out, like everybody, fresh to the game, picking up pages for this manual that are filled with a script we cannot read. And I assumed from the start this is probably something you could learn to read, but I wasn't sure. Eventually, we picked up page 21, which is where they give you your first clue as to how this language works. Now, this, despite me spending a good amount of time staring at this and doodling in a notebook and trying to figure out what on earth the previous owner of this manual had figured out was, I didn't figure this out for the longest time. In fact, this is maybe one of the last pieces that fell into place for me. But if nothing else, this is a great little moment here getting this page, because this is your first clue, if you hadn't guessed it already, that yes, you can learn to decode this script. This is your big clue that, hey, the previous owner is figuring something out about this, about whatever this thing the fox is saying here. This is interpretable, or at least the previous owner thought so. So if you hadn't had that realization already, there you go. There's your clue. You can learn to read this if you work. Then we do get some further clues later on, further driving home the point that yes, you can learn to read this, because eventually you will get some pages where the owner of the manual, which page is it? Well, you do get this here where the owner is clearly puzzled about a specific symbol here. And the fact that they're circling a specific one seems to suggest that they know what that symbol means and what the rest of them mean. Because this particular symbol is a question mark for some reason. So the rest of these are fine then? But the further in you get though, eventually you reach a point where you are seeing them actually write in the script themselves with this word down here. Now maybe they don't know what that means, but it seems to suggest the previous owner cracked it. So you probably can too. And then eventually you will get this page, which really is, as I suspected, the thing that sort of busts this whole mystery wide open. Not right away. Again, Carrie and I spent a good 7-ish hours after having this page trying to figure out the rest, but this is the biggest piece of the puzzle that's really going to help you start putting things together. Let's just look at this for a bit here. So we have a whole bunch of symbols, and they seem to sort of be broken into two categories, sort of like outer shell type shapes and a bunch of other just little shapes that can be fit inside them, which is what you could kind of see happening here, right? You can see that, let's just like zoom in on this just one symbol here near the bottom. There is a symbol which a little further down, the note taker splits into two different pieces, suggesting that like, okay, this symbol is a combination of these two which exist somewhere in this big list of symbols. Same here, that symbol you see there is a combination of these two symbols, and they like misdrew it a little bit at the top there, but eventually you can kind of parse here, like, okay, yes, that's a combination of two symbols there too. Interesting. And ooh, look at this top circled one here. You can see that same symbol kind of just below it, except there's a different outer shell around that one. Okay, interesting. So these are things that can be combined. Okay. And then we've got like a little fox or thing pointing to that one and a little sword thing pointing to that one. So maybe this is fox and sword, or tunic and sword. I don't know what the fox's name is. This could be dagger. This could be a lot of things, but this is a very, very, very big clue for us to work with. And there were a few other hypotheses that I'd sort of put together along the way, right? Like on top of this thing that they've just given us here. I don't know why all of these are circled necessarily. Maybe that's just part of their process. But there were some other guesses that I'd had looking at this script. For one thing, it sort of made sense to me that like we see all these clumps of symbols with like a horizontal line through a lot of them, right? I assumed that all the symbols and shapes and stuff that were kind of sharing one horizontal line, maybe those are all like one word or phrase or something. It seems like it'd have to be word, right? Like assuming well, maybe we can't assume that, because like assuming the dot at the end of these is meant to be a period at the end of a sentence. And we are seeing some other very English language punctuation in here, right? There's a comma, so right, like that would make total sense for that to be a period. And there's quotation marks there. So like, it kind of makes sense that these are structured and laid out similarly to English language sentences. So those are probably periods. Don't know why that one doesn't have a period at the end of it, but whatever. There's a hypothesis we can sort of work with. One thing that I wasn't certain about for a long time though was like, all right, well, how do all of these, if the horizontal line signifies words, what on earth, like how are you meant to even start interpreting all these other symbols, right? Because lots of them are connected in weird ways. They're split by that horizontal line into a top and a bottom half. Like, are they things that you're supposed to read top half then bottom half? Are they meant to combine in a weird sort of way? And that especially confused me going back to our first little hint page, whatever one it was, like 21, I want to say. Yeah, because actually, even before we get to that, look at this symbol. These don't even have a horizontal line through them. Is this a different script? Are there two languages in this? A hypothesis that I came to, and I think I've mentioned it in an earlier episode, is that maybe the horizontal lines are optional. Maybe the horizontal lines are something you can skip, because I see some symbols, like, see that little vertical line with two diagonals, like the second symbol here, this doesn't work as a description at all. But look, we got exclamation mark, sort of a weird backwards lowercase t, diamond shape at the top of a stick, and this symbol here, the one next to that. There's like this line up here, this sentence or whatever up here, seems to start with what looks like kind of the same symbol, except this one has the horizontal line through it and a little bit of negative space beneath. Come to think of it, everything has negative space beneath. Maybe this horizontal line's an entirely optional thing. Maybe this is the difference between written word and spoken word or something. Or I honestly still don't know why the horizontal line is optional in some cases. maybe having the horizontal line be there as a way to separate these things into words would make a lot of sense. Maybe that's a bit of like helpful formal writing technique that you don't need to have in a more casual, just written line. I don't know. It's all guesses still for me on that one. But I was looking at this and seeing like, okay, the writer here is pointing to the little circle at the bottom of this. They've copied that exact thing that the fox is saying first. They point to the circle, and then beneath that, they seem to like flip the sort of triangle shape and hash marks, like the rest of the parts of that little vertical group there. They seem to flip them for some reason. And then they take that same little up arrow triangle shape and break it off of the top of that one there or something and like move it underneath. Or am I supposed to take like these symbols here that are like separated by a horizontal line? Am I supposed to be taking something from like the bottom and moving it to the top? Like I got stuck on that for a good long while, trying to figure out like, how does that work? What are they interpreting here? Because like they're still writing this without the horizontal line, but then the fact that they draw the top of that little diamond on a stick shape underneath it next to this, which is flipped. This is just a very confusing way of signifying what the author has figured out, it turns out, but that really threw me for a while. The thing that really started making this all kind of come together, and I mentioned this in a video as well, were these pages here. These pages helped immensely because you could sort of use context to guess at what the words on the page were. So like, looking at this in context, this is showing us that you can like press and like hold A to run. Like that's how you run. So, okay, they just gave us hold, which is nice. So maybe this is press or push or something. Press and hold. And wait a minute. All right, that same symbol is right up here. Press and, oh, maybe that's what hold looks like in the Tunic script. Press and hold. And there's a whole bunch of other words, but like, look at that. All right, these are like press and the maybe hold there both have that like horizontal line there, and those are separate words. Okay, so that hypothesis about the horizontal line seems to hold true. And if we zoom out, we can see like, all right, I would guess that this is button if I had to, like the A button, the left trigger button, even though that's a weird way to say it, but like, if that is button, then looking further down, there's the second line, there's that symbol there again. So our guess is press and hold the button to run. Is that the same symbol as run? Oh, they don't have a symbol for run. But yeah, like that's my loose hypothesis guess for what that sentence is. The only other clue that I sort of had here, other than some guesses as to what these words might mean, like, I think the things that really started getting us a little bit of momentum was actually this top left symbol in the sentence, the press and hold the button to run. So if I was right, and that is the, and that is to, okay, those are some small, simple words. And if we just like look for those exact symbols elsewhere, we can see those showing up in other places in total isolation. And it would make sense to have such short words like to and the showing up everywhere. Like I also figured out what I was guessing is just the word a, like there's a fox over there. So like, oh, here we go. That face your adversaries, and then symbol A. That little horizontal line with the up arrow at the top of it is a nice, simple shape that you see popping up in a lot of places, just scanning sentences in this book. And it sort of made sense to me, like, okay, maybe that is A. I forget which exact sentence it was that I was like scanning that made me start thinking, it would make a lot of sense having that just be the word A. And so if that's A, and that's to, and there's another one that's the, yeah, the top right one in this clump here, the, that's a start of something. especially A, because A is just a single letter. A is not even like anything complicated. So if we combine all of the hypotheses and straight up information the book has given us so far and go back to that page that really is like kind of your main guideline, if we assume then that the horizontal line is optional and that a lot of the symbols we are encountering are some combination of an outer shell shape and an inner like symbol type thing, because that is what we're seeing here, an outer shell and a inner geometry, an outer shell. Well, it doesn't really like look exactly like an outer shell, but I don't think I see something in this little inner geometry set that looks exactly like that. Well, there kind of is. There is one actually like that. But as we can see, when we see like these two combined, that little second symbol there is the outer shape, and this symbol, the first one here, is the thing inside it. And actually, the way these are written, it looks like the inner shape, like the author here always writes inner shape plus outer shell, inner shape plus outer shell. So maybe that order is important. If we just take all that information that we've got here, what would then, in this chart, the word A be? The only thing that looks like it is the very top right up here. So, okay, going on that theory, maybe this is the letter A, or the word A, or something. It's hard to tell. All right, then. If we can find... do we have, like, to or the in here? Or our guesses for those? So, I think... number 2, word the, right? I think so. What would that look like then, if we were treating these as an outer shell and an inner shape? What would that look like? Okay, it would be honestly the same symbol as A, and like up at the top there, and then an inner shape that's sort of like the interior of a peace sign, right? Like a vertical line all the way down, and with another similar A little up arrow thing in the bottom half there. So, okay, can we find that symbol in this, like, list here? Yes, okay, third row, third one over, right there. That looks like that symbol plus that shape somehow makes the word the. It's difficult to figure out how that connects, but okay, like if that is the word the, then in theory, that combination, it's made from those two somehow. So from here, you can kind of like try to start making some guesses as to how the language is sort of structured. Like, it could be several ways, right? Maybe it's sort of like a weird alphabet cipher, but that's kind of unlikely because there's a lot more symbols here than there are letters in our English alphabet. So it's probably not something that simple. Well, there's combinations of like different symbols that can maybe make sounds. Maybe it's similar to sort of a katakana thing, like in Japanese, where you've got like your basic vowel sounds like a, I, U, A, O, but then there's also combinations with different consonants like ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, and mami, mu, me, mo. Like there's different symbols for that sort of thing. Maybe that's how these combinations work, except if we're just going with like those 5 vowel sounds, there's that the math on that doesn't totally check out either. There's a whole lot of both of these outer shells and inner geometry things. So maybe it's more of a phonetic thing somehow. Like, we didn't really know what to do. So basically we took that information, those guesses around the word a, the, and to, and then just went back to page 21. Oh, there was one more clue that I had kind of gotten that started cracking a few things open a little bit. And I talked about this one in a previous video as well. This read to me like a compass. I didn't know what the notes meant. I still don't know what the notes mean, but this read to me like a compass. And if we treat these symbols as north, east, south, and west, and just take that as true, and then look up at these 4 little generator things here, interestingly, we can see that seems to hold true. Those are the symbols for our guesses of north and west, north and east, south and east, south and west. And another little interesting detail here is that these symbols are connected in weird ways. Like they're all sort of drawn as one big shape, which is useful because it does sort of like tell you, okay, these symbols can be drawn separately as like separate words here, I guess. Or maybe they can be like, you can also draw them to where they sort of run together, which is useful because a lot of these symbols do seem to run together. Maybe these are meant to be separate symbols that are sort of drawn in linked sort of ways when they're in the same word or phrase or whatever. Another interesting detail is that, again, assuming this was northeast, south, and west, there is a page later on where the author draws those out. Here we go. And there's 2 interesting things. One, they draw another like set of symbols pointing to each of these, which I was a little stumped on what all that meant. Also, interestingly, the author does not include the horizontal line this time. Further evidence that the horizontal line is kind of an optional thing. As you can see here, like look at that top symbol for north there. No horizontal line drawn through that like it is back here on our little compass. So, all right, good to know. But yeah, at this point, basically, Carrie and I went back to this page, not 21, to the, this one, and just started like really digging in close on all these symbols and trying to see like, okay, what is each of these a combination of? Are there any of these that we can try to suss out? Like, if this very bottom left one here is the word press, and maybe it's not, maybe it's push, so like that, once you're trying to actually figure out like what the different symbols and letters are, that gets into sort of uncertainty of like, okay, we do need to know what this word specifically is. Like, is it press and hold the button to run, or is it push and hold the button to sprint, or something like that? Like, the difference between run and sprint then becomes very important. But we started just digging in further and further, trying to find like, okay, where can we isolate symbols? Like, okay, next to, on the top row of this press and hold to, this top line here, press and hold to, in hold, we can sort of see what looks like 3 different letters in a way. Like, we've got an outer shell with inner geometry, just inner geometry from the look of it, and maybe just inner geometry again, possibly. Like, well, you can sort of see that symbol of like a vertical line down to a down to an up arrow. I can't tell if this is easy to follow verbally at all. I'm just trying to walk you through all of the steps just in the interest of being thorough, but basically Carrie and I went through the process of just studying like different lines really closely and trying to find individual symbols that we recognized from that big list that the previous owner had written up in the notes page, and then trying to see if we could find those combinations in other places, and then trying to see if could we make some guesses as to what the word these little symbols or whatever were coming together to make. And eventually we did start cracking it a little bit. I'll put on screen some of the notes that I was writing down on paper as we were trying to hash this out and running up against like hypotheses and then scrapping them and then just trying out a whole bunch of things. But as we went, we did start having some little revelations that started cracking things open a bit further. Like, if that top right symbol there is the word the, and just that little top outer shell version by itself is the word a, how, like, what does that mean? That means that the thing that those 2 words share in common is that top outer shell up arrow little shape. Why would they have that in common though? Like, the words a and the don't share any letters in common? and they aren't really pronounced necessarily the same either. But then the more I thought about it, the more it like kind of clicked. Well, okay, if you're just saying the word a in a sentence, you're not pronouncing it a, you're pronouncing it like there's a man over there. And the are actually much more similar sounding. Okay, so maybe it's not letters, maybe it's sounds. Maybe this is a more phonetic thing. If the top thing is maybe that other little shape beneath it in this case is th, is the th sound. And so that, like, this symbol in total is the. And that kind of started cracking a lot of the rest of it. We started looking like, okay, if this is the word to, then on the second row after button, if that little word there is to, then that would suggest that if we're following that pattern of consonant sound, then vowel, inner geometry, then outer shell, then that particular outer shell is an oo sound, and that inner kind of Y shape is is a T, like a T. So to. And from there, we just started kind of looking for, okay, where can we see the same symbols in various places? Like if this is press, is that last symbol an S sound then? If this, like press and hold, if that word there is hold, how would that mean that that's constructed? If we're following the pattern there, I guess it's a like, the inner geometry on that first symbol must be the H, I guess. Maybe that kind of outer shell, that almost completely drawn one except for the right side shape there, is, maybe that's an O sound. So ho, maybe that, how would the rest of this work? Maybe the straight vertical line, because there's a vertical line is one of the inner shapes it can be without anything else. Maybe that's just an ul, like an L sound. And then the last one's a D? Assuming that is hold, press and hold the button. Okay, so if that is button, if we're right about that one, let's see how on earth would that potentially break it down and what symbols would that mean it is. So, what do we have there? And this like button is a really good word for this, because button starts teaching you something else once you eventually start cracking this. Because this looks like we've got like a top joined like zigzag line, a bottom zigzag line, and it seems to be joined by a couple of vertical lines along the way. But if we're taking what we learned from the compass, that these letters and symbols can be conjoined and drawn together even though they are still distinct shapes, and we know that these are all combinations of an outer shell and inner geometry, then okay, maybe this is in fact 3 different symbols that are just making kind of an interesting pattern. So we've got an up arrow for an sound, presumably, and a vertical line that then beneath the horizontal break like angles off to the right a little bit. Maybe that's a B sound, a buh. So buh. Oh, that's the start of button. Yes, okay, but. And so that would make maybe this shape here, which has, as its outer shell is just sort of the bottom down arrow part of the outer shell. And it doesn't look like there's anything else. And a interior that looks sort of like a Y, basically, just a Y shape. And maybe that's the T sound. So like, or well, no, wait. Yeah, maybe that's the T sound. And that could mean for the, what would that mean for the outer shell of this one? Maybe that's an O, or, well, no, we already have an O for hold, but you don't say button, you say button, like you button or button. Maybe it's also sort of like an shape. Button or an button. Maybe it's like that sort of sound. And then maybe this last one, which seems to only be just an interior geometric shape, maybe that's just N, maybe that's just N. Maybe it's button, something like that. So, like, that's basically how we started kind of cracking this. And it started out as individual theories for shapes until we started finding more and more places where those individual shapes could be found. We tried to figure out what our guesses at the rest of the word around them would be, try to use context based on, like, where they were being used and on what page to sort of see, does it make sense for it to be that word? What is this saying? And then as we started putting those together, we started guessing like, okay, we're pretty sure this symbol is this sound, and this symbol is this sound, and this symbol is this sound, and it just started kind of falling like dominoes, eventually until we ended up with, and again, like for real, if you're not wanting just full spoilers for like what all of this is, I'm about to put it up on screen. This became sort of our cheat sheet. Well, not even cheat sheet. This became our sheet of what we figured out for what each of these shapes and sounds meant. As you can see, there's still a couple of them we didn't 100% figure out just because those particular symbols don't seem to be showing up in a lot of places. Like I said, we didn't decode the entire book. But so far, Carrie and I, once we started like cracking this code and managing to get through more and more sentences, this list of sounds paired with shapes seemed to hold true. So, given that, let's go back to what the author here was sort of figuring out using our symbol. Here, Carrie, put our little cheat sheet off to the right over here so people can sort of follow along with me. Let's try to read the words or sentence or whatever that the author's writing over here based on everything we've learned. So, let's look at the one that the little fox head is pointing to. If we look for that inner symbol first, sorry, I'm looking at this on my other screen. Okay, that is we guessed that was an F sound, and the outer shell is the ah sound. Okay, so fa. Let's see, that next one looks like it's just an inner shell, so not even a combination, it's just a sound. So that looks like the K. So fak, and then that last symbol there is just an inner shell again, and it is a S. Fox. It's fox. That's how you spell fox in this language. Cool. And then let's see, beneath that, so we've got outer shell and inner geometry. Inner geometry first symbol is, oh, that's the S again. Okay, yeah, that's the S shape, except with different outer geometry. The outer geometry is, which one? Or. And then that last one is inner geometry, which is the D sound, sword. It's sword. It's the word sword. Okay. So now, there you go. That's how you read Tunic. But there is one last piece, isn't there? One last piece that it took me a little while to figure out, and it's this... It's the first stupid hint they gave. What do the circles mean? Little circles underneath words or letters aren't any part of this little cheat sheet. There's no little circles in the cheat sheet. I'm not going all the way back. There weren't circles in the cheat sheet. So what the heck do those mean? Sorry, I got lost for a second there. Also, while I was here, one thing that really helped us to sort of crack this initially was I just kind of made a guess at like, all right, what is this fox saying? Because this is a short little word or sentence or something like that. Based on the context, if I just had to take a random guess at what this fox is saying, it's like, the hints and clues. The fox looks confused and frustrated. Is the fox just saying stuck? Or like lost? Or something like that? I bet it's stuck. I think that's like how we figured out the K sound at the very end there, because that is, the fox is saying, I'm stuck. That's what's in the little word bubble here. And that combined with my guess for the word east, north, east, southwest, kind of suggested the same thing. If you look at north, south, east, and west here, but by the way, this doesn't actually literally say north, south, east, and west. It doesn't have the full word. It's more like no, nor, like east, south, and west, or something like that, but don't worry about it. If you look at north, south, east, and west, only one of those words starts with a vowel. This one starts with an N, W, S, E. And if you think about it, if the fox is saying, I'm stuck, the word I'm also would start with a more vowel-y kind of phoneme. So that's what the circle means. The circle means if there's a circle underneath the symbol, flip the order of their pronunciation. So if you have a symbol for, if you had the symbol that was the sound ta, like the inner shape was the T sound, the outer shell was the shape, if it has a circle underneath it, don't pronounce it ta, pronounce it at. And that's it. Now you know how to read Tunic very slowly. And so Carrie and I were just like for fun, because at that point we'd been going for a lot of hours and we were up very late and we're very tired, just started looking for like making sure we've still got this, and because we're still missing some symbol shapes here. Like once you've got enough of the phoneme sounds and symbol combinations sort of paired up and like locked in, the rest of them just start like coming together even faster, because you can shape the rest of the sentence around it and start making much better educated guesses. We could look over here. Lots of people in comments had been mentioning something about sleeping and the bed. Again, some hints were vague, others less so, but me seeing this over here on the hints and help page and clues while we were trying to figure out the language, like it made me feel like maybe this would be a good one for us to try to read. So right now, as our little final exam, we're looking at this bottom thing here, the sentence or sentences next to the little bed. Let's try to read this. So first word, that's K. It's like first a K sound for the inside. Outside is, what is the outside? Outside is A. I think it's the A sound. So ka. What's the second one there? I think that's just N. I think that's just the interior for N. So can, the word can. Okay. Second word, that's just the I sound. Okay, can I. All right, next word here. That's first a G, so G. And then the outer shell is O. Can I go? Next word. A B sound with an A sound, so ba. And then that's the K sound, so can I go back? Next word is to. Oh, yeah, now we can confirm it. So yeah, that's first the interior is the T sound, and the outer shell is the oo sound. So yeah, can I go back to? Next word, the inner shape is, where is it? H, so a H sound, and outer shell is ow. Can I go back to how? Okay, longer word, here we go. Inner shape th, outer shell I. Can I go back to how the? And then next symbol in there is just inner geometry for ing. And then the last symbol is just the inner shell for the S sound, so things. Can I go back to how things? And this one, the inner geometry shape is, which one? What? Sort of a W sound. Outer shell is were. Can I go back to how things were? So we got the first line. Hey, we did it. Now let's do the second line. You can see why I haven't done the whole manual. It still takes a while. All right. The inside is a P sound. Outside is so per H sound plus a sound, I think. Per huh, or maybe it's an a. No, that's an a. So because the outer shell, the left vertical like line. This is going to be impossible for me to verbally explain. It's an a sound. Perhaps, like the next, yeah. So this is the word perhaps. So that third symbol would be the P sound again, and then the S symbol after that. So perhaps. All right, next word. And the. Oh, all right, what's the outer shell for this one? Air. Perhaps there. And, oh, okay, here's our first word that has the little circle underneath. So let's figure it out. So the inner geometry is a Z sound, and the outer shell is an I sound. So we would say that Z, except there's a circle underneath, so we say it, reverse it, is. Perhaps there is let's see, way. Yes, way. Perhaps there is a way. That's an N. Hang on. So it starts with an N, and then next is the inner shape is a B, and the outer shell is, where is it? E? That doesn't make sense. Hang on. Oh no, I was wrong. The first symbol in that word is not an N. That's close, but no. That's actually an inner geometry and an outer shell. The inner one is an M sound, so M plus A. May be. That's why I was getting confused. Okay, may be. Okay, next word is first. The inner is th, and outer is I. Maybe this is okay, inner is an L sound plus an ah sound, but reverse it because there's a circle underneath. Maybe this is all D, and then R plus E, dream. Maybe this is all a dream. There you go. So I've already, like, my brain has already kind of dumped cash on what the top sentence was, but it's something like, can I go back to how things were? Maybe there is a way, or like perhaps there is a way or something like that. Maybe this is all a dream. Go to sleep in the bed and you can go back to how things were, is the point. So there, we've interpreted a Tunic sentence. We did it, everyone. So, that was a whole episode of either fascinating or mind-numbing language interpretation, depending on who you are. But that is how Carrie and I cracked the language for Tunic, except stretch everything I just told you over 7 or so hours. I still don't know what most of the script in this book says, but now, when we're trying to solve puzzles, taking the time to stop and read is something we can do. And isn't that exciting? That's going to be a fun little tool in our tool belt. When we come back next time, we are going to try sleeping in the bed, and from there, see what we can find. Sound good? I hope you all have a lovely day. It's good being back to Tunic. Sorry we didn't actually play Tunic, but tomorrow we're going to play Tunic. See you then. Goodbye!